additional homelessness. So we've got, tiny houses and mobile homes and multi-family units and mansions, just the full gamut that really need to be built, and we're lacking the construction force. So we started a workforce development task force specifically in the trades to address that issue. And also, after participating in a housing study, we have a steering committee to implement the recommendations to build those houses. So now we know what we need to do. And I believe I am one of the people who can help us get there, both because of my professional background and understanding of what it takes to build the houses, and also because of my employment background and understanding what it takes to develop a strong trades workforce. The other piece that I offer is this resiliency planning piece. As you know, we are susceptible to these seismic events and to interruptions in our power supply. All of our communities can rely completely on energy that is imported. My company has installed more solar electricity systems on the coast of Oregon than anyone, so I have an intimate understanding of the power grid and what solar can and cannot do. What I would really like to focus on, and I've already begun at our public utility commissions with testimony to this effect, is that when we have communities that reside at the end of the electricity line, they are not being served with safe and reliable electricity, in that it is all imported and they're highly susceptible to shutdowns, which means that our hospitals cease to operate after we've run through the 96 hours of generator fuel that is stored there. Our police station ceases to operate for the same reasons. We have now, with solar, with battery backup, the capacity and I believe the responsibility to develop distributed energy systems along our rural electric grids so that our rural communities aren't cut off from the basic living necessities of clean water, public safety, and shelter during times of an extended grid outage.
And so along with the sort of bringing all the stakeholders to the table idea, you have done something called drinking civilly. And I'm interested to hear more about that and what that's taught you about getting along with different people in your region.
You may have heard of drinking liberally, which is a national phenomenon that sprung up after the 2016 election. And like in many places around the nation and around the world, we have a watering hole. It's our local brewery where people get together and talk. And I the drinking liberally idea and thought, well, that's good. If we all knew, hey, on the second Sunday of the month, we're going to get together and pick up a political topic to talk about. But why do we want to just hear from the same liberal people that we hear from all the time? It becomes this rant or preaching to the choir, and it really doesn't get us anywhere. So we had the notion of expanding it and calling it drinking civilly, and specifically reaching out and targeting individuals in the community that we know or suspect are up to speed or greatly impacted by political topics from all across the spectrum, and invite them to sit in. It's a 2-hour event, and the first hour is moderated by a tribal judge, which is nice. And he reminds people of the rules. Really people are very, very civil. The only times we've had any problems were actually the conversation about Jordan Cove Energy, and to some extent a little bit on gun safety law. But it really is a pretty civil event. During the course of the first hour, people make statements about what they know about a specific topic. And I take notes and write them down. We try and go back and forth. If there's kind of a pro and a con side, we try and make sure that we give everyone equal voice. And then for the second half of the event, I have written down the notes that I've taken and put them all over the walls of the brewery And people just kind of talk and follow up on some of the issues that were brought up during the general discussion. And they rank the top 3 statements that they feel most represent their viewpoints or are the most important factors or facts. With a couple, I give everyone 3 dots. And then after the event, we take the notes. We use the dots to prioritize what the community's kind of pulse or feeling is on a topic, and we publish it on a website. So it's a kind of a nice way to, get a little bit of a litmus test for how people are feeling. But more importantly, I think every time we walk away from one of those events, we learn something new. And that's where it's at, that mutual respect and understanding. We're all in this together, particularly in our neck of the woods. We are expecting a 9.0 seismic event. There's a 60% chance of it happen in the next 40 years. And when that happens, all of our bridges are going to collapse, all of our culverts, and we have quite a few of them. And we are going to end up with a lot of little teeny tiny islands of people who are stranded and need to take care of themselves. So we've really started talking about that a lot more in the community, about that island concept, and that we really can't afford to work against each other. We really do need to understand what everyone has to offer and what everyone needs, and really just practice good civics and working together, whether we agree on everything or not.
I love that, and it feels so Oregon to me. My brother used to live in Portland, and we went twice for the beer festival. So,
yeah, beer is big. We have a coastal caucus. Senator Roblin, who's just to the north out on the coast, did a wonderful thing at state legislature. And he started a coastal caucus, which is, as the name suggests, all of the legislators that have districts on the coast, regardless of what their political affiliation is. And he gets everybody together every summer for a couple of days to talk about the big issues that are facing the coast. And 2 years ago, we had a panel of the power of breweries. It's really interesting that the breweries opening up in the little small communities, they just crystallize people coming together and talking. And there's a lot more there than just the straight up economics of tending to tourists or selling beer. It's really strengthening the social fabric, and it's a really interesting advent that I don't think everyone anticipated.
That's really neat. So you mentioned earlier that one of the big issues in this area is economic development. Could you talk a little bit about what you would like to do as state senator to make sure that economic development is going in a direction that's helpful to the most people?
Absolutely. I've been meeting a lot with our economic development managers at the various nonprofits and workforce development. And what we're finding is that we don't have a jobs problem. It's not that we need some big industry to come in and save the day. We have a workforce problem. Unfortunately, in some of our areas, we've been faced with generational poverty, and we have children, and in some cases, grandchildren, growing up in households where they've never seen the adults suit up and show up. So they're literally lacking the life skills to be employable. A lot of that we can attribute back to mental health issues, whether it's PTSD, the living conditions that they've experienced, or we have a lot of substance abuse issues as roll forward. So the common denominator that we're getting here is we need to provide comprehensive child care and holistic education, public education for all of our children, regardless of economic background. If we have single parents or double working families that their work is restricted because they don't have access to child care, or minimum wage is so low it doesn't make sense for them to go to work because it's so expensive. After they get done paying for child care, they're making $3 an hour. then it's no wonder that they're not choosing to suit up and show up. So when we refocus our social services back on the youngest denominator, look at programs like Head Start and greatly expand them to be completely inclusive, and then tie into educational programs at the schools that directly lead into living wage jobs, which is something that is being done in the area, then we can disrupt that cycle and save society a lot of money. One of the Senator Roblin, the last time I was at one of his addresses, stated that a dollar spent in Head Start is worth $27 not spent in dependency and punitive measures and social assistance later on down the road. So as a senator, I would very much like to focus our efforts. I'm calling it stitch in time economics, instead of waiting until the problem is at a year-old that's been skipping school and has dependency issues based on some mental health issues and has been couch-surfing. 1 in 10 of our students is homeless here in the region. Instead of that, let's grab them early and get them engaged in healthy environments and educational environments that really do set them up for success. One wonderful program that's going on over in Roseburg is they've reached actors in the area, the manufacturing jobs, the medical jobs, the educational jobs that we were just not able to fill, and developed playing cards like baseball trading cards. And each of the cards has a career on it. It lets the children know how much money they could make, what that lifestyle is like, and it lets them know specifically in that community, how do you get into that career? And as they progress through the years, they're actually taking the steps that as they're in junior high and in high school toward a job at the end of the line that they walk right into. So it's there are some excellent examples throughout the region, and I would just like to focus our efforts on picking those out of the pilot program stage and implementing them as a matter of course throughout the region.
Is there anything else that you would like to make sure that our listeners know, either about your campaign or about your district?
I think that other thing that has compelled me is in my professional life as an engineer, we look a lot at the infrastructure that our communities and the built environment that we provide for people to live in and the profound impact that it has. We talked about the breweries a little bit. That's a smaller scale, but when we're constructing schools, we're creating live in. It really does shape society. Getting to speed on our accessibility to seismic events, not to mention that my region, with the exception of locusts, if there's a natural disaster, we get it. We've had tornadoes up our rivers. We have, every one of our towns, coastal towns, has burnt to the ground over the course of history. We have droughts, we have rainstorms, we have windstorms. So we're highly susceptible to being cut off. And what we see is that since we have a lower population density out here, there's not a priority at the state level or federal level to spend money in our infrastructure. It really is focused in the metro area, the Portlands of the world, and east of that. So one of the things I've been doing is meeting with our sheriffs and emergency responders and better understanding the state of, and definitely would like some meaningful investments in really simple things like communication systems. We know that we are highly susceptible to a tsunami. For example, right now the coast is using air raid sirens from the 40s, and about 25% of them are still working. I don't believe we can even get parts to fix the ones that aren't working. And the budget that was proposed to replace them with what we really need and what is being in Japan was so high that they just walked away from it. So there are some real simple nuts and bolts investment opportunities that we really, really do need to make.
If our listeners would like to find out more about your campaign, maybe help if they're in the